major city and very modern and the whole bit. I said, where in blazes is Tainan? And he says, well, this happens to be a Japanese World War II base down island on the South China Sea, and the nationalist Chinese have a major air base there. You're going to be based on that air base in an American sector with about 150 other GIs. I said, really? So, right from the get-go, when I started to go over, I had trouble. I had trouble in Seattle. For some reason, things weren't going smooth, and finally I got all of my stuff loaded, and I got onto the plane. Stopped at Tokyo, went on. There were 235 of us on the plane. Ended up in Taipei. Out of the 235, 4 of us were going down island, and we spent an extra night there. The next day we reported in, and the other 3 guys went down island by train. I had to spend another day there by myself. I'm going, what the heck is this? I said, just stop in tomorrow, Sarge, or just stop in tomorrow and we'll get you down there. So I stopped in, and they said, we got everything all straightened out. I go, okay, fine. Well, we're going to put you on a Chinese air junket and get you down there. So that's how I ended up. I'm not going to go into the details about that, but I got down to Tainan. And to make a long story short, I put in my time, no orders to come back to the States. None. Personnel I had gone through personnel, I'd gone through everybody, nobody could find out anything. And so there was a priest that was at the installation, and he came over to me and he says, you're really having trouble, aren't you? I said, it's like I'm not even here. He said, well, I've got a friend at McCord. Do you mind if I give the colonel a call? He owes me a favor. And I said, I don't care, Father, but don't get in trouble. He says, I got another job. I don't need this one. I said, okay, whatever. So 3 days later, I got a call from 5th Air Force out of Hawaii. And the guy says, Sarge. I said, yeah. He said, this is Hawaii. Where do you want to go for your last 6 months of the service? I says, what? He says, where do you want to go? I said, I get a choice? He says, you got a choice. I said, I've never been to New England, so let's pick a base in New England. How about on the ocean somewhere? Got a beachfront property up there somewhere? He says, actually, we do. And I says, you do? He says, sure. We'll send you to E.P.I.C Air Force Base, Portsmouth, New Hampshire. He says, Hampton Beach is right there. It'll be great for the summer. It'll be absolutely super the last bit of your tour. I said, fine, I'll take it. That caused a lot of problems all up and down the whole system, I guess. But I ended up there. To make a long story short, I pull in, and here at the front gate is a bronze mushroom cloud, home of the 509th. I'd go, oh my God, home of the 509th. So I actually have discharge papers from the 509th. That's what my discharge papers read. I was discharged from the 509th. It was beyond coincidence. Go to find out that I was totally lost in the Air Force. I had no orders to go to Tainan, Taiwan. That's what the delays were all the way along the line. My orders that I had been canceled before I even left Wright Pat. So nobody knew I was at Tainan, Taiwan. I was lost. Coincidence or not. If it hadn't been for the priest, I would have never known. To end that, I knew there was going to be a new Air Force museum built. I saw the blueprints at the architectural engineering at Wright Pat in purchasing. And I knew it was going to be over at Wright Field somewhere, since that had been closed down for many years for planes. So it was 2003, I think, was the first opportunity. I was doing a paranormal case in Cincinnati, Ohio, and I had 2 other people with me. And those 2 people knew about the Wright Pat story. and we were coming back up through, and we've got plenty of time, they said, and we're going to be close to Dayton. Would you mind? And I said, the only reason we go there is if we have something to accomplish, because you don't go snooping around. You've got to have a reason to be there. So I said, how would you like to touch UFO technology? He said, touch it? I said, literally hold it in your hand. Touch it. Yeah. I said, okay, that's the reason we're going. So we went. First time I'd been back to Wright Pat since I was there in 68, because that's when I left, 68. And went to Wright Field, and yep, there's the new museum, really gorgeous. It now looks like a space wheel, actually, a circular space wheel. No pun included in that. On top of that, I walked down the old flight line because they had some of the old planes outside, and you're never going to guess. You know where they built that museum? They built the museum on the spot where that orange ball hovered before it shot off. They built it on the spot where that thing hovered in 1967.
I wonder why.
I wonder why is exactly the question. Absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. So I was just totally blown away by that. But I said, okay. So I sent the one guy to one place. We were in the hub, and there were like 10, 12,000 people. The lot was packed. Everybody was in that center spot, noisy as heck. And so I said, we got to split up. You got to find the jet planes. So one guy went one way, and this lady went with me into this other one, right off the center hub, into this huge hangar area type thing. And it was like 30 feet before you came to some partitions that prevented you from seeing the planes. It was just flat, empty floor space for 30 feet. Off to the left was a display of Mercury and Apollo capsules. And there was a staircase you could walk up on it. So we, instead of going in there, I said, hey, we can just climb up there, look over the tops. If they're not jet planes, then we can take off. So we climbed up, looked over the top. They were all prop planes. When we were up there, are you ready for this?
Tell me.
From the other side of the ramp, here comes this little girl, I would guess about age 5. She had white socks, black patent leather shoes, a plaid flare skirt that was puffed out, had straps, and a white top, and red hair. And we were looking over the top, and all of a sudden I get this tug on my arm. And she says, you must come see. And we both looked at her. Now, you know, we're trained people to be observant. This was totally out of character. First of all, there was not one other person in that whole building. There were 12,000 people out in the hall, 2 feet away, but not one of them was in that building. And we looked at the girl, and we said, okay, 1 minute. So we looked back just to make sure it wasn't. She said, you must really come see. And we go, okay. So we turn around, and we follow the little girl to the other end. Here at the end was a Mercury capsule that was lit from the inside. There were 5 steps to the main floor down below. I stepped down 2. The lady was there, just peeked around the corner, and we looked inside the window of the capsule. We both remembering hearing, ah, you must come see. We turned around. That little girl was not there. 30 feet to the door, 3 seconds looking inside, and all we hear is, ah, you must come see. And no little girl. We got out into the hallway, and we were going nuts. What the hell, excuse me, just happened? What in blazes just happened? It was like walking into a lion's den. I mean, when we walked through that door, the noise was unreal because it had been so quiet where we were. We figured, the lady who was with me figured it out. She says, Michael, I don't know what the little girl was, but she was definitely 40s or 50s dressed. No parents, but did you notice the red hair. I said, oh yeah. Michael, it's the evolution of the orange ball that you saw going down the runway in 67.
Oh my God.
I said, oh my God, is exactly correct. The red hair, the orange ball, the way the girl was dressed, the vintage dress that she was wearing, the way it was with the little flip socks and the black patent leather shoes. And it was absolutely amazing. Well, we got to find what we were looking for. We walked into this other building, and here was a display of Star Wars. They had 3PO sitting there, and the Day Flyer, and R2-D2, and the whole bit, all laid out right there as you walked in the building. And they had a big sign above it. You know what the sign said? Are you ready for this?
All right.
Things are not what they appear to be. Is that amazing or what? Things are not what they appear to be, right above the Star Wars display. Well, as it turned out, we found the SR-71 Blackbird. That was in the back of that structure by a door, a huge hangar door. Walk around it, and I said, okay, people, read what they say. I said, this thing says it first flew in 1952. I said, do you know what kind of airplanes the government, the U.S. had in 1952? An F-86 that could barely go fast enough to keep out of its own way. And this thing has a classified speed beyond 1,800 miles an hour, an altitude of 80,000 feet plus, and it takes a spacesuit to fly it. In 1952, what the hell was a spacesuit? We didn't have space then. There was no such thing as a spacesuit. So I said, aha, here you go. All made of titanium. Absolutely incredible plane. Did things beyond what we would have ever comprehended. I said, this is the technology gained from our friends up there somewhere. In the meantime, I turned around, and here in the corner of the building was a powder blue plane sitting there. And I couldn't believe about that. Art Bell would have jumped out of his skin. Here's a little placard in front of it. There are no windows in it. And it was powder blue, the whole plane. And it said, Aurora. I said, what?
Aurora?
Aurora. I go, Aurora? You got to be kidding me. Because, I mean, everybody had talked about whether the project even ever existed. Here, sitting in the corner, no lights on it, back in the back, nobody was around it. Nobody ever went around it. And here's the display sign about Aurora and the Pulse engine. I'm going, holy cats. Unbelievable. I said, you guys don't even have the foggiest idea what this plane is, but this is unbelievable, this plane. It was not even possibly ever existed. And they said, well, it sure is sitting there. I said, yeah, it's sitting there all right. I said, I can't believe that it's here. I said, excuse me, but I got to touch this. And so I just went up and touched it. The windows were all the same color, powder blue. I couldn't even there were very few cracks, so I even had no idea. I looked to see where the doors might be, but and it was not a plane to where the canopy was to pop, so I had no idea how you got in or got out, but I was curious of how you could even fly it because there were no windows to look out of. And if there were, then they were painted over the same color as the skin of the plane. So anyway, that all happened in that one rush. But I went back with my wife about 2 years after that. I think it was 2004, 2005. And I wanted to find what the little girl was saying that I must come see. So I wanted to find that display. They had changed the whole place around. It wasn't anything in that room that was even comparable. And I said, oh, crud. I said, it's gone. I said, now you just got to keep your eyes open for any possibility. Well, we found a B-1 bomber. And there was almost nobody in the place. And here came 4 or 5 people dressed up in suits. And they were walking through. And here, on the ground, on the hangar floor was an American Kessler Hawk. And I'm thinking, how in blazes does a hawk get in a building like this? The people, as they walked by, looked at it, but kept right on looking, or right on walking. They just kept on going. And I said, that was strange. And my wife said, yeah. Well, then the bird flew up on the wing of the B-1 on the other side. So we walked over there, and I was actually less than 2 feet away from a Kessler Hawk staring at it, and it didn't budge. And my wife says, look at the head. I said, oh, God. It had an orange head.
Oh,
I said,
unbelievable.
oh, my God. I said, that thing flew off, and I never saw it again the rest of that trip. So I went around, and then I saw capsules over on an entryway. So I said, okay, sit down here, Sheila, and watch this little video about the B-1 bomber history. So I walked over. I found that capsule. It was right out in the open, but there wasn't really anything there that caught my attention for anything. I walked back, and I said, oh, my God. And my wife turned around and said, what? I said, take a look at the landing gear flap on that B-1. She goes, oh, 509th.
There you go. All the way around a circle.
There it is. It's all the way around, but I still don't know what it means. So, I'm sorry to take up so much time. We need to get
you know what?
other stuff.
Yes, Michael, why don't we take a break here? And
Yeah.
we come back from the break. Let's talk about the Diaries of the Dark Side. What do you think?
Okay, we'll do that.
All right, stand by. Well, hello there. We are back with Michael. And Michael, why don't you go ahead and wrap it up with the Right Pat story, and we'll move on to some very dark side.
That's a good lead-in. You did that well.
I'm such a dark...
I doubt it. Just to wrap that story, I was at Lilydale here in New York, which is a spiritualist community, and I was taking some classes, which turned out to be, I'll be kind. I'm just not going to comment on them. We had a lady from Toronto who was an incredible lady, and we were doing a circle, and nobody wanted to talk about anything. It got to me, and I gave them the Right Pat story up until where the planes and everything disappeared, and that's where it stopped. And then we broke up, and the lady said to me, Michael, do you mind if I try an experiment? And I said, no, fine. She said, okay, see that orange light out on the porch? Concentrate on the orange light. So I did, and she was behind me, and she talked me into like a trance or whatever it was. But what that really ended up doing is, she said, do you know the name of the orange ball? And I said, yes. She says, what is it? And I said, Thoris. And she said, why are you afraid of yourself? I don't remember 70% of the whole conversation. Ultimately, 2 people had to hold me up. I do remember that because I was just collapsing. And the other comment was by her that was very prominent in my mind was, she said, Michael, that orange light had to take the same path as the B-52 that landed over top of you. You do not remember seeing it. You have that loss of time from when you were in the building till you were outside looking down the runway. That thing passed over top of you, took part of you, and left part of it, and it will come back for what is theirs someday.
Unbelievable.
That's a quote.
Oh,
so that's how the missing time was finally, after all of these years, justified in my own mind. And she told me that in 2002. So that really completed the story for me, because otherwise I had no idea. But it was really quite interesting. Now we get in.
Michael, that is just, pooh.
Yeah.
That is an amazing story. You know what? I want to throw out the show telephone number.
Yeah, do that.
When at the top of the hour, we can start taking some questions. So anybody interested, write this down. 888-919-2355, or, as we say in the military, 888-9er-1-9er-2355. There you go.
That takes me back far. Oh gosh.
Well, Michael,
Okay.
why don't you tell
Yes.
me about how the Diaries of the Dark Side came about?
Diaries of the Dark Side. That came about on a very abrupt, no notice thing. I had a gentleman knock at my door a few years ago, and he introduced himself, and he said that he was a demonologist and he was working on a case, and he got my name from somebody out in middle New York somewhere, and since he was this way, he thought that he would try to look me up. So we sat for a couple hours talking, and uh, I had never met a demonologist before, um, and he didn't give me really any specifics on the case he was working. He later came back about a week or so later, and we sat down, and I gave him some stuff about me and what he was doing, and this turned into to him to be a possession case. Well, possessions are very rare to begin with, let alone a demonologist dealing with this, and a possession case. I'm thinking this is all out of whack. And the man had been working with this family for about 2 years at that point. And so I had communicated back and forth via emails, and he kept me up to date some sort of way. And I got on the phone with him one night because things were getting, I guess, really crazy up there. And I said, look, I said, you've got to look for the hole in the ground. I said, there's a hole in the ground. Whether it's a well, whether it's there's a depression in the ground that goes back to the history of Fort Niagara. That goes back to 1736, roughly, when the French built it. And there were nothing but Indians around at that point. But I said, that's the key to this whole thing, is the place where the hole is. I said, do you know of a structure or something that goes into the ground that's near that property? He says, I think so. And I said, okay, what you're going to have to do is this. You're going to have to preferably because if what you're telling me in this possession of this child, who was 12 or 13 at the time, he's not going to let you do this. So you're going to have to somehow get him away from the property. And I said, when you do that, you find this area and you seal the area, because all of the energy is coming up through that hole in the ground from the past, from the 17 and 1800s. It's all coming into the reality of the people that are living there. So you must seal that first before you can do anything with the house or the property or the people. If you seal that and get the boy away from the place, then you've sealed the energy and you're great. 2 months went by, not a word. And then I found out that the demonologist got so freaked out that he left the family high and dry, the whole bit. As this turns out, there are people that say ghosts and things like that don't hurt you, can't hurt you. I got news for you. This case, 7 people connected with this house died within 2 years. 5 of them were family members. 5 of them hung themselves. Just what happened to the French hanging the Indians. It turned out that this ground was actually like an outside prison. And the French kept all the Indians in the prison there. They actually hung them there. When the French lost the fort to the British kept the French in their own place, hung them, and then the French took it back and hung the British there, and then the Americans took over the whole thing and hung the French, British, and the Indians there.
That is unbelievable.
All on this little piece of land. And there was a structure there that went back to that time frame when the people decided to build their house. They tore it down and filled in the hole in the front yard that I had told this demonologist months before that he had to find. And here I go to find out there was a structure. There was a place. And there it was, right in the front yard. I'm going, holy cow. Well, as it turns out, the book was written by Cassidy O'Connor, a phenomenal writer. She did a great job of telling it the way it was. She had given me a call, very short notice, 5 o'clock on a Saturday night. She said, Michael, the individual's mother, I'm not saying names, is going to take him, and they're going to be out from like midnight to 2 o'clock or until we call them. Do you want to do this now? I said, you want me to exercise this whole thing now? She said, tonight. I said, okay, fine. And it's a good 2.5 hour drive for me to get up there, but I went and met Cass, and then we went up, and there were 2 other guys to help us out. We picked everybody up, and we ended up there. I have never been so focused in my entire life. I rarely ever got the way I was during this thing. I walked into the house. I right away sat up a statue of Michael the Archangel. Father Al, of some of the things that he gave me before he passed away, was a Mayan ceremonial bowl. And I always use that bowl when I'm doing the work. I set that up. I remember the grandmother saying something to Cassidy about how this guy really knows what he's doing. Well, from that point on, I said a couple prayers, and I had the holy water, and I had Father Al's chrism, and I wasn't quite sure. I was going to do the interior of the house with the holy water. I said I need to go to the child's room first. She said it's down the hall on the left, but she says, I will tell you, nobody has been in that room in 6 months other than the child. I said, that bad, huh? She said, nobody goes in that room. I said, okay. One of the guys went with me. We opened the door, and I'll tell you what. The exorcist had nothing on this room. The mattress was ripped and cut and torn. There were no bedclothes on it. There were like a giant claw on the wall and scraped all the way down the walls. It was absolutely beyond any description that I could even make. All the closets, the shelves were broken in half and literally laying in a heap at the bottom. There was food, stuff, junk everywhere. I said to the guy, no holy water here. We're using chrism on the walls. It's the only place that I have ever used holy chrism to exorcise a specific place. I did not use the holy water. I used the chrism on the walls there.
Why
Because
did you think holy water was not going to be enough?
That's exactly correct. And the chrism is an oil, and the oil will remain where the holy water will evaporate, even though we have to go on faith. But the oil will always remain there. It will not evaporate away. And so I needed something permanent. And so then at that point, I said, next thing we do is we have to find the hole out in the yard that I know is out there somewhere. So we went out with the rods, the 2 guys. We had little red flags. I said, wherever the rods bend, stick a flag. So I used the dowsing, went right around through. We had four flags. The grandmother, since she owned the property, had to come out because she has to dig the hole and she has to put the stones in for the grid because she's the owner of the land, not me. So we did that. We came out, and I said to the lady, is this the place where the structure stood? She looked at the tree that was near it. She goes, oh my God, This is exactly where it is. If you would put this straight up, it would be right where it stood in relation to the tree. I said, fine. We went around, we dug the hole, we put in the stones, sealed the stones, sealed that spot. We were with the boy till 5 in the morning. I did a hands-on healing of the boy, even though he didn't know that that's what I was doing. We had a great conversation. Everybody was sitting around. The kid was absolutely amazing. And the kid was a straight A student, by the way, people.